viewers or listeners won't know that that is a signet, a sophisticated system, part of a sophisticated system.
This is big time.
About 15 seconds. Stand by. Good evening. Welcome to Meet the Candidates program. Port Jervis School Board candidates will be with us tonight. I'm News Director Paul Lester, and we welcome you to our continuing public affairs programming. With me tonight will be Tom Petrie, WDLC, WTSX newsman, who will be asking some of the questions. I'll be asking a few questions myself. We have 4 of the 5 candidates with us now. The 5th candidate we expect will join us later. That will be Robert Hamilton, and incumbent. But with us to start, well, Robert Hamilton has appeared now at the start of the program. Bob, if you'll just go ahead and take the last seat on the end. We're just getting underway. So we're pleased to say that we do have all 5 candidates with us to start the program this evening. As you will hear them in order of their opening statements: Earl Walker, Michael Bello, John DeRoma, Dr. Harrison Murray, and Robert Hamilton. Now, the way the program works, for those of you not familiar with our format, we do have an opening statement of 2 minutes. Then the candidates will be asked questions in rotation. They'll be allowed 60 seconds for a response and a 30-second rebuttal if they desire. Then there'll be a closing statement. We may, if we get an audience and have questions from them, invite some questions from the audience. We have a very small audience with us at this point at the Access 8 studios. We'd like to thank, of course, Access 8 for their facilities, and Access 8 will be repeating, by the way, the telecast of this Meet the Candidates debate at a later time. We may be able to announce that by the end of the program. Let's get underway, gentlemen, with the opening statements, and we turn first to Earl Walker.
Good evening. First of all, I'd like to thank WDLC, WTSX for their sponsorship of this forum, and for the volunteers of Access 8 for giving of their time to keep the community informed. For the many who don't know me or know little of me, my name is Earl F. Walker, Jr. I've been a resident of Port Jervis for the last 15 years, married for the past 27 years to a former Gretel Karst, a native Port Jervian. I'm the proud father of one daughter, Christina, a Port Jervis High School and Cornell University graduate. I should say I'm also proud to have been married to my wife for 27 years. I hold a bachelor's degree in chemistry from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute and a master's degree in organic chemistry from Pennsylvania State University. I currently work at Letterly Laboratories, a pharmaceutical manufacturer in Port Jervis, New York, as an assistant director in regulatory affairs. I have overall responsibility for the accuracy and regulatory compliance for all labeling for Letterly products and have 5 people reporting to me. I was appointed to the school board on an interim basis in January, pending the outcome of next month's election, or this month's election, I guess it's next month at this point. My previous school board experience was also gained on an appointed basis. Filling the unexpired term, I resigned board member from September 1984 through June 1985. I served as a city councilman in Port Jervis from 1986 through 1987 and again in 1989. While on the council, I served as chairman of the negotiating committee, assisting in a successful negotiation of 3 contracts of the police and CSEA unions. I ran for mayor of Port Jervis in 1987 and based more on principle than good sense, and deservedly lost in a landslide defeat. I hope you agree that my training experience qualify me to assist the district in meeting the educational and financial challenges facing us this year and into the foreseeable future. I apologize if this sounds like a rather dry job resume. I'll try to liven things up and give you an indication of my philosophy and my assessment of problems facing the district during the question and answer period which follows.
Thank you, Earl Walker. We turn now to Michael Bello, the second candidate for the Port Jervis School Board. Mr. Bello, your opening statement.
My name is Mike Bello, and I am a candidate for the Port Jervis Board of Education. As a parent of 2 children in the Port Jervis school system, I have an active interest in the quality of education our children receive. It is my firm belief that our children are our most valuable assets and are the future leaders and educators of our community. For the past 16 months, I have attended the public sessions of the Board of Education meetings and have served as a member of the Restructuring Committee. My main goal as a board member would be to see that our children receive a quality education starting with kindergarten. I, for one, would like to see full-day kindergarten come to Port Jervis. In today's scholastically competitive world, our children need a solid elementary education in order to be better middle and high school students and thus better educated adults. As a concerned parent, as well as a taxpayer, I would look at each issue that comes before the board with an open mind, study the pros and cons, as well as what kind of impact the final decision would have on the school and the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael Della. We turn now to John DeRoma. John, your opening statement.
Good evening. My name is John DeRomer. I have lived in Port Jervis for the past 14 years. I live at 26 Cahoonsey Street, and I have lived there for 11 years with my wife, Ro, and my 3 children, whose ages range from age 14 to 6. I have been very involved in the community in the past 14 years, basically with youth programs. I am a Vietnam veteran, and I am medically retired from the United States Marine Corps. I am a member of the Disabled American Veterans and a VFW Post No. 1, Washington, D.C. I am past Exalted Ruler of Port Jervis Elks Lodge, and I am a past Youth Chairman of the Port Jervis Elks Lodge. I am past East Central District Youth Chairman, and I am currently on the Board of Directors of the Port Jervis Little League, and I have been involved with this program for 11 years. I do not coach anymore, but I do umpire 2 nights a week. And for the past 3 years, I have been the president of the Port Jervis Pop Warner Football League. And I have been a coach for 7 years, and I am also a member of the PTA. I am employed at Homemaker Services of Orange County, and I am the Home Maintenance Director for the Senior Citizens and the Physical Handicapped. And I am presently seeking a seat on the Port Jervis Board of Education. Thank you.
Thank you, John DeRoma. Our 4th candidate tonight is Dr. Harrison Murray. Dr. Murray, your opening statement.
I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Harrison Murray. I live here in Port Jervis. I'm on Main Street, and I'm sorry to say that I've lived here in Port Jervis longer than many of these other young fellows, actually 74 years. Why am I interested in returning to the Board of Education? I have previously served 1 3-year term and 1 1-year term. Port Jervis High School has a long history, even in my own family. My father graduated from Port Jervis High School in 1905. He was one of 16 members in the senior class. He lived in Narrowsburg, New York. He traveled down here to school by railroad train and attended the 4 years of high school here. I graduated from Port Jervis High School in 1933. We had 72 in our graduating class. My 4 children graduated from Port Jervis High School, and they went on to attend college. I have 1 grandchild who has already graduated from Port Jervis High School. I have another grandchild who plans to enter in a year, and another grandchild in 3 years. The quality of education that is available here in this community has always been, and I hope will continue to be, excellent. This is one of my goals, is to maintain a quality education and make it so that it is affordable to everyone.
Time. Thank you, Dr. Murray. We turn to our 5th candidate, Robert Hamilton. Mr. Hamilton, welcome to our program, and your opening statement, please.
Good evening, Paul. Thank you to Access 8 and WDLC for having this opportunity to address the public concerning our school district. My name is Bob Hamilton. I know most people in the community. I was born and raised here and went to school here. I am presently a member and president of our local school board. I have served on this board for over 20 years, as well as 8 years on the Orange County BOCES board. Over the years, I have worked with many board members in providing a quality and affordable education for our students. I have helped introduce many changes in curriculum and educational technologies such as computer literacy, as well as improving transportation efficiency and bringing our cafeteria program from a large spending loss to a break-even situation. I'll speak just a minute about state aid. Many of our school board, much of my school board career has been consumed with finance and budgeting, the unpopular side of education. In early years, the state funded most school districts in order that each child has the opportunity for an equal public education. Over the past years, the state has reneged, and welfare spending now exceeds educational spending. Now, political clout and not formulas decide local state aid. Is it fair for Port Jervis, the lowest income district in the county, to receive a cut of $350,000, while other cities like Middletown, Newburgh, and other schools in Orange, Putnam, and Westchester County with average family incomes of well over $100,000 actually receive increases in state aid? Regardless of who is elected to our board, the problems they face are awesome. I have always fought to keep school taxes affordable to our community and to provide a quality, affordable education. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert Hamilton. You've heard the opening statements of all 5 school board candidates. We turn now to the question portion of our program. We have with us tonight Tom Petrie of WDLC, WTSX News. He'll be asking some of the questions, as will I. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to answer the question. If any candidate desires additional rebuttal, then all candidates will be afforded an additional 30 seconds. I'll begin with the first question, which will be directed to Michael Bello. Mr. Bello, and to all the candidates, of course, would you classify yourself as pro-education, pro-taxpayer, or what? Or if you feel that such labels are inappropriate, please explain.
I would consider myself very pro-education, but also keeping concern for the taxpayers.
Mr. DeRoma?
Well, I would say also that I'm pro-education. But what the public has to remember is that they elect school board members. And the school board, everybody puts them at blame for taxes and for the education. What they really have to do is write letters to their legislators. I guess we all here do not want to raise taxes at all. We are for education, and we try to provide the best education possible for the tax dollars that are affordable.
Thank you, Mr. DeRoma. Dr. Murray?
There's no question that education and taxpayers' funding are intertwined. As Bob Hamilton mentioned, the quality of education does not reflect what we are given in state aid. There's no question that the present system of funding the balance that doesn't come from the state on the property tax is inequitable. It's certainly a very poor way to raise or fund money that does not come from the state for education. It seems difficult that because of the low property values and assessment, that perhaps the quality of education may be reduced because there isn't sufficient funds. So we must change the way the funding is based.
Thank you, Dr. Murray. Robert Hamilton?
There's no doubt that the two questions are intertwined. There's no way they can be. When you look at like Port Jervis is able to afford to spend like $5,000 something per student for education, and we look at other districts within the county and over in Putnam County and Westchester County where we're spending $5,000, they're spending $10,000, and yet we're taxing far more on true than they are. In other words, our ability to pay is far less, yet they're not taxing near what they're able to tax. I think that's really a partnership. It's a partnership between the students and the taxpayers, where the taxpayers have to
work as hard as they can to provide the best quality education they can, and I think that people have to realize there's a limit to how much the taxpayers can pay also.
Thank you, Robert Hamilton. And Mr. Earl Walker.
I'm placed in an uncomfortable position of following some eloquent people speaking on a topic. Obviously, I'm for education. I think it's like saying whether you're for apple pie or motherhood, too. I'm also for those things. And I also agree that we have a problem with state aid. Unfortunately, we have a situation we're going to have to live with this year, right now. All the lobbying in Albany is not going to do any good for this year. We have some tough decisions to make. And we're going to try to maximize educational benefit while being cognizant of the fact that this is a relatively poor community. We don't have state aid, yes, but we have to live with that. We have to deal with that the best way we can.
Do any of the other candidates desire any additional comment on that question? If not, we will go to our next question, a question from Tom Petrie. And Tom, your question would go first to John DeRoma.
All right, Mr. DeRoma, thank you, Paul. With a tax increase almost guaranteed now, every year it seems, would you favor cutting non-academic programs such as sports?
Why did I know you were going to ask me this question? All right, let me answer that question for you as briefly as I can. All right. I personally feel that education in the classroom is very important, but not singling out sports. Any after-school activity is also very important because it is a form of education. Now, you singled out sports. You have a lot of youngsters out there. Their scholastic and academic grades are not very high, but they can excel in one sport and they can get a scholarship to a certain school which will provide them the education they need through that sports scholarship. So if your answer to me is to cut not sports but after-school programs, we will have to really look very, very hard what's out there before we cut any programs. It's very hard times right now.
That was John DeRoma. We turn to Dr. Harrison Murray.
It's very difficult for me to see a child sitting in a classroom 7.5 hours, still doing nothing, trying to learn. Children are active, they have to move around. They need sports, they need physical activity, and they cannot learn anything if they're just trying to sit still because they can't. So therefore, we must have an active sports program, we must have an active physical education program, and many of the children wouldn't come to school, and if they did, they wouldn't pay attention if it wasn't for sports or other things to make them want to go to school. The days when the pupils are motivated to learn are fast drawing to a close.
Thank you, Dr. Murray. Robert Hamilton.
I think that sports programs are very valuable. I think that there's something that every school district wants to have, but I think that they're up the same as everything else. If we have to look at a tough year, as finance chairman, I feel that I'm going to have to look at everything. I'm going to have to look at sports, I'm going to have to look at programs, and I find it pretty tough if I'm certainly going to look at sports if I have to at the same time lay off elementary teachers, which I think is certainly vital. At the present time, we're spending a small amount on sports. We're probably spending about 1/2%. But if I had to make the tough choice, which I would still like to keep some sports, and I really don't want to cut sports programs, but if it's going to be a choice between elementary teachers and elementary education, I think I'd have to lean toward the elementary education.
Thank you, Robert Hamilton. We turn to Earl Walker.
I agree with Bob. It's kind of a tough choice, but my attitude toward making cuts is I like to let the administrators administrate. I like to let them know how much money we have to spend, then they come back to us with what programs we can preserve with that amount of spending. As to whether sports are an integral part of the educational process, I think clearly they are. Whether they're more valuable than some of the intellectual activities or some of the scholastic activities, I tend to think not, but I'll rely on the judgment of the people we pay the salaries to make those kinds of decisions.
Thank you, Earl Walker. Our fifth candidate is Michael Bello.
Sports and academics are very closely intertwined, and I feel that we need the athletics. They're a very important part of education. The current proposed budget spends less than 1% for athletics. To cut from that, you wouldn't be making much of a difference, I don't think, towards the decrease in the tax increase. With less than 1% being spent on sports, it's approximately 600 kids are participating. So I don't see where cutting sports would help. It would only be hurting the kids.
Thank you, Mr. Bello. Any additional comments from any of the other candidates? If not, we'll move on to our next question. For a second year in a row, it appears that, and this will go first to Dr. Harrison Murray, by the way, it appears that for a second year in a row, some adjustment will be made to the assignments at the elementary level in order to achieve something close to a preferred balance in class size. In other words, some students might be moved out of one elementary school to another, as was done last year. Is this a good arrangement for this to continue year after year after year, if that be the case, or would you favor developing some kind of long-range strategy to try to avoid that? Dr. Murray?
There's no question that the long-range strategy, long-range planning is vital. That is one of the, you might say, planks or things that I'm going to try and make sure that we do in the upcoming years on the school board, is to focus on long-range planning. We started a little bit this past year. We had a group of community members met with some of the administrators and some of the board members, and they discussed reorganizing and changing the various grades, perhaps rehousing some of the various grades. They presented to the board a short-term goal, but nothing has been done on the long range, and they're stymied because they can't go any further until we start our long-range goal planning.
Thank you, Dr. Murray. Robert Hamilton.
We, as Dr. Murray pointed out, we've spent a lot of time this year. We've had a restructuring committee out, and I think mostly because of changes in structure and the cost of renovating schools or possibly closing one schools, which we certainly can't do at this time, and there's no real desire to do so that I know of. But as far as any big changes go next year in structuring or moving the students around, I don't see it. I think the problem is long range, and it's going to be intertwined with structuring and the cost of restructuring. With everything with education comes to cost. I know it's unfortunate. I sound sort of redundant with the cost, but that's it. That's my job, and I have to think of that. So I think it's going to be down the road a ways.
Thank you, Robert Hamilton. Earl Walker.
I think that obviously, as demographics change in the community, you have to think in terms of possibly redrawing lines in terms of which school a particular family would go to. However, the way I see this restructuring program as proposed, there's going to be a lot of extra busing, and that's something I would strongly oppose, especially for the younger children, especially for kindergarten age students. I have a lot of reservations about restructuring as it's currently envisioned, as something that's going to require a lot of study and a lot of thought before we act on it.
Thank you, Earl Walker. Michael Bello.
I feel that moving the kids is not a good short-term way of alleviating overcrowding and equalizing class sizes. So I feel that the restructuring has to be looked at, and if I'm elected to the board, I would try to pursue that idea. I think it's a good idea, and I'm in favor of the restructuring for the long term.
Thank you, Michael Bello. We go to John DeRoma.
Yes, I am in favor of restructuring, but like Dr. Murray said and Mr. Hamill, Mr. Walker said, we have to look at the long term. Right now, you cannot keep moving the children around. What's happening right now, we are getting very, very crowded. We have a lot of new people moving into the area, and the classrooms are very, very crowded. And I feel, yes, we have to look at the long-term problem. Right now, we have to stay with the short term that we have.
Any additional comments from any of the candidates on that question? If not, we will go to another question in just a moment. I'll remind you that you are tuned to Meet the Candidates, a live production of WDLC, WTSX News. We are featuring tonight the 5 candidates for the Port Jervis School Board election, which will be held next Tuesday. And we continue with our questions for the candidates. Tom Petrie, your question will go first to Robert Hamilton.
I want to stay in the facilities vein, if I may. There is an overcrowding situation at the Port Jervis Middle School. I believe 560 students are projected to attend the school next year, and I understand that 2 classrooms will be made by basically kicking out the Committee on Special Education. Students from the Montague School, or from Montague Township rather, make up part of the 7th and 8th grades, and there is talk in Montague about pulling the 7th and 8th grades out of Port Jervis. I realize that somewhere in the neighborhood of $7,000 comes from Montague to Port Jervis for each student that's educated here, but there is an overcrowding situation. Is there any thought given to either encouragement or any word from Port Jervis to Montague on this situation in regards to overcrowding at the middle school?
I don't see anything relative to the Montague School District sending students to Port Jervis that's really causing any of our overcrowding at this time. We have been looking forward to overcrowding coming up more or less, not so much from Montague, but from the elementary enrollments that are moving up now, what's going to cause overcrowding in our middle school. We are actively looking at this time for to rent space somewhere in Port Jervis, probably a downtown area, to remove our special education department from the middle school, where they do take up 2 classrooms and a lot of storage space. If we're successful in finding this, we will be moving them from the middle school to other resources. As far as Montague goes and the cost of Montague students and so forth, the Montague students really aren't the overcrowding in Port Jervis School District.
Thank you, Robert Hamilton. Earl Walker.
This has been kind of a favorite topic of mine. I think I addressed it last night at the school board meeting. I find it a little bit disturbing that where we make our planning and our infrastructure and our staffing considerations based on a rather tenuous commitment that we have from Montague. First of all, I think they get bargain basement prices in that the cost that they pay is far less than the cost we pay as New York State taxpayers. Recognizing that Montague students get New York State aid, which is a situation I find rather puzzling, and I find rather strange as a New York State taxpayer that we're subsidizing, in essence, their education. So I'm a little bit worried about, I think the overcrowding is an issue in the middle school, and I think 155, I don't think it's 155, must be half of that. Half of those students, half the 155 students from Montague are probably in the middle school, and that has to contribute to overcrowding problem. Again, based on a kind of a tenuous commitment on the part of Montague.
Thank you, Earl Walker. We go to Michael Bello.
I agree with Mr. Hamilton that the Montague students aren't the problem of overcrowding in the middle school. I feel that moving Committee on Special Education to another location will help alleviate some of the overcrowding for the short term, but again, this is a problem that has to be dealt with for the long term, and that's where the restructuring committee would study.
Thank you, Michael Bello. Our next candidate is John DeRoma.
Yeah, I also agree with Mr. Hamilton. It's not the Montague children. You're talking about 153 children from ages from 7 to 12. It's the growth of the area. I know that the middle school is very crowded, and it's not that anybody is kicking out the special education. Like Mr. Hamilton said, they are looking for places downtown to rent, to move them to for the time being. Space in the middle school, yes, is a question, but it is not the Montague children that are overcrowding the school system.
Thank you, John DeRoma. Our final candidate is Dr. Harrison Murray.
I believe it's a little bit confusing when you mention 155, 158 Montague students. There are only, I believe, 34 that are in the 7th and 8th grades. And when you figure out how many 7th grades there are, how many 8th grades there are, that amounts to 1 or 2 students in a classroom. The board conducted a study not too long ago on this very question that comes up, whether it creates a overcrowding situation with our facilities. And I believe the findings of that study, Bob will bear me out, that it had very little impact on the overall picture. In other words, if Montague pulled out all 155 students, that does not mean we can lay off 2 or 3 teachers. It will make no change in our present situation.
Time. Any other candidates desire additional comments on that question? If not, we will.
I have
Okay,
one
Bob?
comment on that, and that is on the financial aspects of it. When we did that study, of course, we wanted to make sure that they really were not causing a crowding situation. And we looked at the revenue side of the budget, and Mr. Walker pointed out about the tax thing one way or the other. But I feel very strongly that while we're not causing overcrowding, and it's helping our house at a difficult time at about $700,000 in additional revenue, I don't see any problem with it. Where the money comes from, if we don't get it in the state, somebody else is going to get it. And if we have it on local tax base, we're going to try to get all the money we can get wherever we are.
Time. Any other candidates? Any final comments? If not, we'll go to our next question. This question will go first to Earl Walker. Dr. Constance Sims, who has been the Assistant Superintendent for Education for the past few years and generally received high praise from all circles for doing an outstanding job, will be leaving the district within the month. Superintendent Patrick Hamill says she should be replaced. The president of the Port Jervis School Board has hinted in conversations with me that it is possible the position would not be filled, at least not immediately. What would you recommend, Mr. Walker?
Basically, I don't think I'd have a recommendation at this point. Again, I think the administrator's job is to administrate. My only caveat would be, if we're going to fill that position, where is the money going to come from? Is it going to come from the taxpayers? Is it going to come from some other program? I'd like to see that kind of evaluation laid out to me on the part of the superintendent. I'd like to see it very carefully explained. I'd like to see the benefits and the cost and whatever other things we would have to sacrifice explained to me very, very carefully before I make that decision. This is not saying anything against Dr. Sims, who is a very, very able person and a beautiful person, and we're really going to miss her. But I think cuts are going to have to be spread across the administration, across the faculty, and across all the programs and the maintenance of the facility. So I can't see isolating on one particular element of the educational program and saying that's immune from cuts. I don't think that's the case.
Mr. Walker, I must follow up on one point. For the second time this evening, you've used the phrase, let the administrators administrate. What role do you ascribe to the school board in terms of oversight for the administration? Do you say accept the administration's recommendations, carte blanche?
No, evaluate. I say we have the responsibility to evaluate the superintendent's recommendations. Obviously, superintendent came up with a 14% a tax increase for next year. Obviously, that's not acceptable. He knows that's not acceptable. He's got to go back to the drawing boards and change that based on our input. But I expect a balanced set of recommendations from them. I am not a micromanager. I am not going to go and evaluate each staff member and say which is more important than another. That's his job to tell me.
Okay, thank you, Earl Walker. And because he had a little extra time on that question, we will give all the candidates an appropriate amount of additional time if they desire to have it. Michael Bello?
I feel the position created by the departure of Dr. Sims should be filled very quickly. I feel with a large amount of students that we have, over 3,000, and a large budget, approximately $24 million, we need someone whose expertise is instruction. She has brought in, over this last several years, millions of dollars in grants, which helps to supplement the current programs that are mandated by the state.
Thank you, Michael Bello. Bello. We go to John DeRoma.
I know Connie Sims as an administrator and as a person. The school district is going to miss her. She has been an asset to the children. She has been an asset to the school board. She applied for funding to help the children. I personally feel that her position should be filled. It is a needed position, and the children deserve that position. Thank you.
Thank you, John DeRoma. And Dr. Harrison Murray.
I feel no question about it that that position should be filled. Education is very important. We need a dedicated, inspiring leader to motivate our teachers, keep them motivated. She also the assistant superintendent for instruction or education is also charged with in-service education, which we have to provide to our teaching staff. And as already been mentioned, she's brought in over $4 million in grants. Not only does she write the grants, or the administrator write the grants, they must administrate them. That in itself is a terrific job. Someone must know what they're doing, because even yesterday and today and tomorrow, there are representatives from the state here following this administrator around all day, checking on whether regulations have been complied with, how we are administrating this money, and in the last year's budget, I believe it amounted to $1.12 million.
Thank you, Dr. Murray. We go to Robert Hamilton.
Dr. Sims was a fine administrator. I knew Dr. Sims for a long time within the school district. I've worked closely with her. She has helped us a lot with grant money. I think whether or not the position will be filled will be one that the board's going to have to look at when they look at the overall cost for the entire program for next year. I think there are other alternatives also that could be arranged. In past years, I remember years ago, we had other arrangements too, where somebody within the staff held both jobs. They held one job, for instance, with curriculum. They might have held another job with something else. Same way with grants. In the past, we've had other individuals that were in charge of grants. I don't know what we're going to do yet. I'm just going to wait. I want to wait and see what the recommendations of the superintendent. I'm sure he'll have a recommendation to see what he wants to do. I know the position at the present time, it probably costs us around $80,000. So we're just going to have to wait and see. What we'll do with it, I'm sure we'll resolve something that will keep our educational program intact.
Thank you, Robert Hamilton. Any additional comments from any of the candidates on that question? If not, once again, I remind you that you're tuned to Meet the Candidates for the Port Jervis School Board. We have all 5 candidates involved in next Tuesday's election: Earl Walker, Michael Bello, John DeRoma, Dr. Harrison Murray, and Robert Hamilton. We do have a small audience here. If anyone in the audience cares to have a question asked, there are forms on one of the chairs in the front row. You can fill out your question on that form, bring it up to me. We will screen the questions and ask them if anyone does wish to present a question. We do have more questions from our panel of reporters. We'll go to the other half of our panel. Tom Petrie. Tom, a question first to Michael Bello.
All right, Mr. Bello, at the most recent budget request hearings, both Principal Jack Latini from the middle school and Principal Mark Bauman from the high school requested that guidance counselor positions be reinstituted. 2 guidance counselors currently serve 880 students in the high school level, and 1 guidance counselor will serve a projected 570 students next year at the middle school level if everything stays status quo. Do you think that these guidance counselor positions should be reinstituted, or should things be left the way they are?
I don't have a problem with reinstituting the position of the guidance counselors. I feel they're very important, servicing a large number of students, but at the same time, with the budget problems and possible cuts in staff, I would rather keep elementary teachers and other teachers rather than guidance counselors. Not to say that the guidance counselors aren't important, they are, but I would rather keep teachers first.
Thank you, Michael Bello. John DeRoma.
I was at that particular meeting when they had, I've been to all the budget meetings. The guidance counselors are very, very important, and they are teachers also. But what we all have to remember is we do not have the funds right now. Right now, it's a very hard time. There's going to have to be cuts with the budgets that came in now. The budgets came in almost 24,900,000 some odd thousand. There has to be cuts, and I am in favor of guidance counselors, but right now we do not have the funds.
Thank you, John DeRoma. Dr. Harrison Murray.
This is sort of a hot potato. No matter how you answer it, it's going to be difficult. Everything in education is important. The guidance, the classroom teachers, and another thing which hasn't come up yet in our rounds of questions, things of that sort, and I think a good time to mention that. The state and the federal government is pushing back to the schools more and more and more things that belong in social lines. I'm speaking of behavior, things of problems at home, children in need of supervision, children in need of support, early daycare. As a matter of fact, it wouldn't surprise me that 2 or 3 years down the road, we're going to have to fund kindergarten for 3 and 4-year-olds, and it's going to become a glorified daycare. Because
time.
This is coming. You wait and see.
Time. Thank you, Dr. Harrison Murray. Robert Hamilton.
You're talking about the guidance, correct? Okay. There's no doubt in my mind we probably have one of the highest ratios of students to guidance counselors in Orange County. There's no doubt about that, and it's not something that we like. It's not something that we want. It's something that was done during budget cutting in the previous years. And looking at this year's budget and looking at a cut in state aid while other districts got additional aid, to be perfectly frank, I don't see much hope for adding guidance counselors, although I think we certainly could use them, but I just don't think it's practical this year.
Thank you, Robert Hamilton. We go to Earl Walker.
I think this kind of exemplifies what I was talking about before. I think everything about the educational process can be considered good. I think what we're faced with in these financial times is keeping the best of the good, not all of the good. And again, we have to look at it not as an isolated piece of the budget, but in context of the whole. If you listen to the presentations from the principals and the other administrators, every one of the things sounds good as they add up. This is good, this is good, this is good. I never like to buy into those at that time because I don't know what the final picture is going to be. Now that I have a better idea what the final picture is going to be and I can see what they're proposing in total is unaffordable. It's just unaffordable. Can't be done. So now I'm going back to the administrators and say, tell us what is the best of the good, what is the most necessary.
Thank you, Earl Walker. Any additional comments on that question from any of the candidates? If not, we will continue. We have time for about 2 more questions, so I will ask a question directed first at John DeRoma. Given the 9 school board members, 3 of whom are present here tonight, there are 2 challengers. That adds up to a total of 11 people that we are talking about. All of you appear to be of the male persuasion, and it has been that way, I think, for the past several elections. There have been no females on the board. What is going on here? Is this symptomatic of something in the district? Is this a problem at all? How do you see that, John?
I don't. I got to go home tonight. No, I haven't even thought of it that way. We have one lady sitting in the audience there that we're hoping next year maybe will come out.
Okay.
But no, I wish they would come out. You're not going to put me on the spot with this one.
All right, Dr. Murray.
This is really not an old boys club, but I'll say this. They have been approached, many members of the female persuasion, I guess you could say, have been approached and asked to run. The average person in the audience doesn't realize the amount of flack, the amount of trouble, and the amount of problem that school board members face. You can't go to the grocery store, you can't go downtown to the drugstore, can't even go out and buy a paper without somebody stopping you, delaying you 15, 20 minutes. This is what should or shouldn't be done. And I feel that many of the members of the opposite sex perhaps cannot put up with this type of heat, supposedly, and because it is very time consuming. And since we've had all these budget constraints in the last 2 years, it takes a lot of time just to do anything.
Thank you, Dr. Murray. Robert Hamilton.
Over the past 20 years, I've had the opportunity to work with a number of women have served on the school board with me, and some of them, most of them, I say, have been outstanding board members. I can remember some of them that Catherine Simmons, Charlene Len was on our school board. She's here in our audience this evening. An outstanding member of our school board for many years was Janice Bullis, who contributed a lot to the Port Jervis School Board. Hopefully, one of these days we're going to see one of the fairer sex or one or more come out and join us. They've really contributed a lot to education in both the county and in Port Jervis.
Thank you, Robert Hamilton. Earl Walker.
Well, I'd like to start off by saying that some of my very favorite people are women. I think most of my favorite people are women, of course, led by you, dear, and our daughter, and Mom, of course. But I think basically, on a more serious vein, I think the problem is societal. I think that, not suicidal, but suicidal. I think that way the workforce is constituted these days, women have to work in a workforce and then come home and unfortunately are saddled with the same duties they had previous to entering the workforce. I don't think in many households in this community or any other that men have really accepted a full share of the burden in raising the children and doing the household chores. I think that's pretty clear. And I think that's one basic reason why women don't get involved more. Hopefully that's changing. Hopefully we men are becoming more enlightened, and hopefully we'll have a lot more women on the school board in the future.
Thank you, Earl Walker. Michael Bello.
I don't know why any women haven't run for the board for the last several years. For the past year, attending the meetings, I've gotten to know several women who attend the meetings regularly and have served on committee with me, and they are certainly very capable of running for the board, and I hope they would in the future.
Thank you, Michael Bello. Any additional comments on that one, John? Okay.
I wish they would run. Just so everybody knows, I have 18 women in my office, and I'm the only male, so I wish they would run. They are very capable, believe me.
Okay, thank you, John DeRoma. We have time for one final question, a question I know that Tom wants to ask. Tom Petrie, your question would go first.
This one's burning, Paul.
Okay, all right, it goes first to John DeRoma.
All right.
Or no, wait a minute, it goes to Dr. Murray. Excuse me, yes.
A couple of the controversial issues this year that the board has decided on were to institute a dress code at the beginning of this year, and then just this past week to ban a book from the 4th grade reading list. If you could, tell me how you feel on these two particular subjects.
I heard you, and I'm thinking about the answer to that question because it's a sticky wicket. Your first thing, is this a conservative board? I would say absolutely not. In our meetings, in the open meetings and also in executive session, there is no evidence of it being a conservative board of education. So we'll eliminate that right away. On the question of banning books, the thing that interested me and some of the other members of the board was the fact that parents were interested in what the children are reading. This is a good sign. The actual outcome, I don't think is important, is the fact that the parents are looking at what the children are reading. This is very encouraging because I think we need more parents involved in education. As far as the dress code is concerned, I guess my time is up.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Murray. Robert Hamilton.
Would I say this is a conservative board? Not necessarily. I think there are conservatives on the board, and I am, without a doubt, known as probably the chief conservative. Unfortunately for some, but for others, they might feel different. The dress code, I think it was long overdue, and I think that it was handled very nicely by our principal at the high school, Mark Bauman, and I think after all the rhubarb was over with and all the original shouting, that I think even the students feel a little bit more comfortable than going around with some of the attire that we had. Books are always a problem. I think the subject of suicide for the 4th grade was a little much. I have a little problem with it myself because I really don't like to see anything banned. I like the freedom of speech, and I really don't like that type of thing. But sometimes you're going to have to make decisions, and I think the decision there was the right decision.
Thank you, Robert Hamilton. Mr. Earl Walker.
I'm not too fond of labels. I'm not sure if I fit in any one category. If by conservative you mean that although I may be generous with my own money, I'm a little bit parsimonious with somebody else's money, I may fit in that category, yes. I think my attitude toward women and men's roles that I previously articulated, I don't think that's a typically conservative attitude. Regarding the dress code, I think it's reasonable to enforce some kind of dress code. I follow one at work. I'm expected to dress in a certain manner. I'm expected to conform. I don't think it's a useless exercise to expect or train children to show some sort of respect for their surroundings and for their teachers. As far as the banning of the books, that's a neat little phrase. I'm not sure it's applicable here. What we had in that book, that particular book, it was a primer on how to commit suicide. Very precise detail. Also, we had a kid assisting another kid in committing suicide, which we sometimes call murder. I'm not sure that's really appropriate for the 4th grade. First Amendment advocates aside, I think we made the correct decision on this.
Time.
In spite of labels.
Thank you, Earl Walker. Michael Bello.
I would characterize myself as a conservative, but I feel that the board was correct concerning the two issues. I feel the dress code was needed. I feel it's very liberal dress code, and it just gives some guidelines that's consistent with society. As far as the book, I don't feel the book was banned totally. It was left in the curriculum for the 6th grade. It was just taken away for the 4th and 5th graders, and rightly so. It dealt with a very graphic nature of suicide, and I don't feel that 10-year-olds should be left open to that.
Thank you, Michael Bello. John DeRoma.
Oh, I don't know if I'm conservative or not. The book, I did not read the book, so I cannot comment on that particular book. The dress code, I have a problem and I don't have a problem. I have a 14-year-old son and a 12-year-old son. And this dress code went round and round in my house, but I feel that you do have to have a dress code in school.
Okay, thank you, John DeRoma. And that will do it for the question portion of our program. We're reaching the end of our allotted time, and what we want to do now is to go into the final segment, and that will be the closing statements from each of the candidates, and we will start in the middle of our list of candidates with a closing statement first from John DeRoma. John?
I feel that my knowledge of budgets and working inside of a budget and applying for state funding will be very helpful in this position. This process I deal with every day in my business activities. Plus, I know the problems facing the seniors with their fixed incomes. And I feel that I can benefit the district, and if I am elected, I will work towards the good of your children, and I will strive for all the children to receive the best education our tax dollars can afford. And I will do my best to vote on issues rationally and objectively. Thank you.
Thank you, John DeRoma. Dr. Harrison Murray.
I wish to thank WDLC, also thank Access 8 for providing this opportunity to meet the candidates. There are many other issues that are facing education not only next year, but in the years to come. We touched on a few of them, and I want to reiterate the importance, I think, of long-range planning. We must establish priorities for this district. We should stop micromanaging. We should stop managing in the short term. We must set goals, particularly because I think you will find that for the next 2 to 3 and even possibly 4 years down the road, we're going to have financial problems. And it's vital that we have long-range planning. In closing, I would like to say this, that I challenge the audience and also the people of our school district to stand up, get involved with education. How can you get involved in education? Going to your PTAs, joining the policy committees in each building. Don't be afraid to think positively, think, reason out, offer solutions, and help with the progress that education needs. There are many things coming up, particularly in decision making, called shared decisions, Compact 2000, etc., that are going to need the input from all the citizens in our school district. Don't forget, vote on May 5th for the candidates of your choice.
Time.
And show that you care by voting.
Thank you, Dr. Harrison Murray. We turn to Robert Hamilton.
I just thank you again for the opportunity of being on the program. I know I sound redundant sometimes about finance, but that's the way it has to be because I've learned over the years without the money you can't do it. I've worked hard for buildings, to build school buildings all over the BOCES Center when I was on the BOCES board and on various schools that we have in our Port Jervis district. Last year as finance chairman, myself and my committee, we worked very hard to keep tax rates low. In Port Jervis, they came in around 4.5% and 3.5% in the town of Deer Park. I think that's very important to compare with the increase in taxes in other school districts, and it tells how hard your school board worked to keep education affordable. Increases in Delaware Valley, Minnesink Valley, Middletown were all in the double-digit area. We worked hard to try to maintain good quality education at a reasonable rate. I think if taxes are allowed to go much higher, I think we're going to find out that we're going to start getting a lot of more or less people that really turned off on schools and we have a terrible attitude because of the tax problem, and people start blaming everything on education, which is a frightening prospect. I love education. I have 5 children and 9 grandchildren, and I've worked for many years without pay or benefit for education. However, we must always keep in mind that many seniors have paid for many, many long years for these schools. And I don't think that we can let at any time to have these schools become the instrument that they could cause them to lose their homes. Please support our incumbents as we strive to help education, to keep education affordable in our school district. Vote on May 5th. Vote for whomever you think would be the best choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert Hamilton. Now a closing statement from Earl Walker.
I'm sure all the candidates in this race are sincerely motivated to provide the best educational opportunities for the children in the district. Then why, you may ask, should you vote for me in particular, or for that matter, why vote at all? Here are some of my thoughts on the problems facing the district. Hopefully it'll assist you in making your decision. First, the school board must maximize educational benefits by providing equipment and programs, motivating the staff, and assuring adequate and effective management. But this must occur within the framework of affordability. This community cannot afford significantly higher taxes. We must do more with less and manage more effectively. Our employees may have to be content with low or even no pay and benefit increases, just like in the real world. I endorse the concept of public referendum for school budgets. I believe the public oversight of this nature forces the board and administration to scrutinize the budget and manage more effectively. and I have serious reservations about the overall benefits of restructuring, especially proposed busing of very young students to a central location. People decide where to live based partly, at least partly, on the proximity of their schools. We have to balance their rights and needs against the purported benefits. I'm also concerned about additional traffic in the Sullivan Avenue area. Finally, I believe that hard times call for the firm principled leadership on the board. The challenges facing us make it imperative that this, or any election, be more than a popularity contest. Speaking for myself, I will not pander to public opinion or pressure. I will make my decisions based on careful analysis and deeply held principles. That's the only promise I will make. And that's enough. I ask for your support. Above all, please vote and encourage your neighbors to vote. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, Earl Walker. And our final closing statement will come from Michael Bello.
I would like to take this time to thank WTSX, WDLC, and Access 8 for this opportunity to share my views with the public and the other candidates. I'm running for a seat on the Board of Education because I feel that I can contribute in a positive way towards the future of our children and the community. I feel that we have a good school system here at Port Jervis, and the job of a school board member a difficult one. But I have the time, the interest, and the heart to devote to the job of a school board member. On Tuesday, May 5th, I would sincerely appreciate being given the opportunity to serve, and I will give it my best shot. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bello, and thanks to all of our candidates, Michael Bello, Earl Walker, Robert Hamilton, Dr. Harrison Murray, and John DeRoma, for a very informative discussion of the issues tonight. You, the voters, will be deciding next Tuesday, May 5th. We will let you know the results, of course, after the polls close at 9 o'clock on Tuesday evening. Our thanks, as always, to Access 8 for their very fine facilities and setting up the program tonight. This has been a Meet the Candidates broadcast, a production of WDLC WTSX News. Control over the format rules and any rebroadcast rights is ours exclusively. My thanks to Tom Petrie for helping out with the questions tonight. I'm News Director Paul Lester. Have a good evening.